Formula One, teams never like to talk about leaving. In public, the message is always carefully controlled. Everything is positive, the future is exciting, the commitment is long-term. These phrases are repeated again and again, especially when major regulation changes are approaching. But Formula One history has taught fans an important lesson. When teams begin choosing their words more carefully than usual, it often means difficult conversations are already happening behind closed doors. As the sport moves toward its massive 2026 reset, Red Bull Racing is not the only team quietly questioning whether staying in Formula One beyond that point still makes sense. Alongside Red Bull, Mercedes, AMG, Petronas and Alpine also face serious long-term questions as the cost, pressure and risk of the next era continue to rise. This is not about failure or embarrassment. It is about logic, timing and return on investment. For teams that have already achieved dominance, or for manufacturers that have spent heavily with limited reward, leaving after 2026 may not look like defeat at all. In some cases, it may look like the most rational decision available. The 2026 regulations represent one of the biggest technical shifts Formula One has ever attempted. Power units will rely far more on electric energy than ever before. Sustainable fuels will reshape how engines are designed and optimized. Aerodynamic rules will change how cars follow each other and how races are managed. Even how drivers deploy power on straights will be different. For teams, this is not simply evolution. It is a high-risk bet on an uncertain future. Modern Formula One is now built around the cost cap, which was designed to create fairness and long-term stability. But the cost cap also makes mistakes far more dangerous. In the past, if a team got something wrong, it could spend its way back to the front. That option no longer exists. If a team misjudges the 2026 regulations, it could remain uncompetitive for years, with no fast recovery until the next rule cycle. This risk affects every team, but it hits manufacturer-linked teams the hardest. Red Bull Racing. Red Bull Racing faces one of the most complex situations on the grid. After Honda's official withdrawal, the team took full control of its future through Red Bull powertrains. That decision brought independence and prestige, but it also brought enormous responsibility. Developing a competitive power unit from scratch costs hundreds of millions of dollars long before a single race is run. New facilities, specialized staff, advanced software, and long-term testing programs push that investment even higher. Red Bull has already achieved everything Formula One can realistically offer. Championships became routine. Records were broken, rival teams spent years chasing an advantage that never came. The brand is globally recognized, the legacy is secure. That raises an uncomfortable question: what is left to prove? Committing to the 2026 era means accepting years of uncertainty. If the Red Bull Power Unit project struggles, recovery could take until the end of the decade. That would mean seasons of explaining underperformance while costs remain high and expectations remain enormous. For a company whose core business is not car manufacturing, the long-term value of that investment is far from guaranteed. Dominance also creates its own problems. When winning becomes normal, motivation becomes harder to sustain. Every new season feels like a defense rather than an opportunity. Media criticism intensifies with every loss. Internally, the hunger that once drove innovation can slowly fade. When pressure replaces passion, Formula One becomes a burden rather than a challenge. Mercedes, AMG, Petronas. Mercedes faces a different problem, but one that leads to similar questions. The team knows better than anyone how quickly regulation changes can end an era of dominance. After controlling Formula One for nearly a decade, Mercedes was abruptly knocked off the top by the current rules cycle. While the team remains competitive, Formula One no longer plays the same role it once did in Mercedes' broader corporate strategy. The automotive world is shifting rapidly toward electrification, sustainability, and software-driven identity. Formula One still offers prestige, but its marketing value is no longer automatic or guaranteed. Developing another generation of complex hybrid power units requires massive investment at a time when company priorities are evolving. If Mercedes fails to hit the ground running in 2026, the justification for staying becomes harder to defend to executives and shareholders. For a brand that has already proven its technical excellence, the question becomes whether Formula One still delivers enough value to justify the effort. Publicly, Mercedes remains committed. Privately, the math is more complicated. Formula One demands full focus, year after year, with no pause and no margin for error. Even success comes at a cost. Alpine, Renault. If there is one team whose future beyond 2026 feels genuinely uncertain, it is Alpine. Renault has a long and complicated history with Formula One. The company has entered, exited, returned, and exited again, often after periods of frustration when results failed to match spending. Despite years of investment, Alpine has struggled to turn resources into consistent success. The cost cap has limited its ability to close the gap to the front, while the 2026 engine rules demand yet another expensive commitment. For Renault, the question is brutally simple. Does Formula One still justify the cost? Unlike Red Bull or Mercedes, Alpine does not have dominance or recent championships to lean on. Its position in the midfield offers little marketing return, while the financial and political demands of Formula One remain relentless. Public statements remain positive, but internal pressure is unavoidable. If Alpine fails to show real progress before the new era begins, walking away after 2026 could once again become a serious option. For all three teams, the issue is not survival, it is value. Formula One demands total commitment. Development never stops. Pressure never fades. Engineers operate under constant scrutiny. Leadership faces non-stop criticism. Over time, even winning becomes exhausting. History offers clear warnings. BMW left after achieving its goals. Toyota exited after spending heavily with limited reward. Honda has left and returned multiple times, each exit driven by shifting priorities rather than failure alone. The pattern is consistent. When the effort no longer matches the reward, manufacturers walk away. There are already subtle warning signs across the grid. Commitments beyond 2026 are carefully worded. Long-term plans lack detail. Leadership language has shifted towards stability rather than ambition. In Formula One, these changes matter. Teams rarely leave suddenly. Exits are prepared quietly. Investment slows before results collapse. Contracts shorten. Flexibility becomes more important than vision. By the time fans realize what is happening, the decision has often already been made. If Red Bull Racing, Mercedes, or Alpine were to leave after 2026, Formula One would continue. It always does. But the impact would be significant. The grid would lose experience, identity, and credibility. Other teams would begin asking the same uncomfortable questions. Is the investment still worth it? Is the future truly stable? The governing body understands this risk, which is why the messaging around 2026 is so carefully managed. Flexibility is emphasized. Adjustments are promised. Confidence is projected. This is not just about competition. It is about reassurance. Formula One needs teams to believe that staying is safer than leaving. At the moment, nothing is official. No announcements have been made. All three teams remain committed on paper, but the fact that these conversations exist at all reveals something important. Formula One after 2026 is not a guaranteed success story. It is a gamble built on new technology, strict budgets, and the hope that the balance is right. For some teams, the math may no longer add up, and in Formula One, when logic replaces emotion, decisions are rarely dramatic. There are no farewell parades, no grand speeches, just a quiet conclusion made long before the public ever realizes that the end may already be approaching.